Hey guys, as you can see on the screen right now, I am playing Tales of Rebirth, but not any version of Tales of Rebirth. I am actually playing a brand new English fan translation of the game done by the team at Lifebottle Productions, who you might know for the Tales of Destiny Director's Cut fan translation. And now, I have been really honoured to be joined in the chat today by the team at Lifebottle Productions themselves. So, can you guys introduce yourself and as well as explain, tell my fans what your first ever Tales game was?
Hi, I'm Peggy. I'm the project manager for Life Bottle as well as Tale of Rebirth. And my first Tales was Tale of Symphonia on the GameCube.
And I am Symphonia Lauren. I am the lead translator for Tales of Rebirth PS2 patch, and my first Tales game was Tales of Symphonia for the GameCube.
I am Dragon Bleepiece. I am the lead editor for Tales of Rebirth and Destiny Director's Cut. And my first one that Tales game that I started was Tales of Symphonia for the PS3, the Symphonia Chronicles collection. But the game I really got into the series with was Zillia, and then I went back and beat Symphonia later.
Hi, I'm Gator Dusky, or just Gator. I run most of social media, and then I edit and playtest too. So my first Tales game was Dawn of the New World, actually, not Symphonia.
My name is Kevin. I'm lead of archiving supplemental material, and my first Tales of game was Tales of Fantasia on the Game Boy Advance. This meant a lot to me. I played it a lot, but now I have better.
You know, it's funny. Thanks. I actually, it's my first Tales game. I actually got the chance to show someone at a video games club Tales of Rebirth, and I was like, if I could ever get you into the series on this game, you could be that one weirdo who, when someone asks what your first Tales game was, you can say Tales of Rebirth, to which every other Tales fan would be like, "What the hell?"
I mean, Tales of Rebirth was my second
that
Tales game I
that's
played.
impressive.
Yeah, Lauren had like the pleasure of having somebody that understood what was importing video games. She had like all the importing video
Well,
games.
I wanted to play the PS2 version of Tales of Symphonia, so I asked my mother to get me a copy, and then it turned out my copy couldn't play on a US PS2, so I asked my mother to import a Japanese PS2. And she bought a lot with all these games in it, and some of the games were I think it was another copy of Tales of Symphonia for the PS2, Tales of Rebirth, Tales of Destiny 2, Tales of the Abyss, and Tales of Legendia were all in the same lot. So
For a long time, that
Yeah.
was my only version, my only physical version of Tales of Symphonia was the PS2 version because I bought it as a pack with all the other, including this one, Tales of Rebirth. Anyway, I guess
mhm.
we shall be talking a bit more about the Rebirth fan translation. So let's actually start with a bit about the background of Lifebottle Productions. So I think you were telling us last time that you guys are not like friends or anything. You've sort of come together as part of a team. You weren't like originally a group of friends who just decided to start doing fan translations.
Yeah, we all kind of met in the server, the good old
Yeah.
Life Bottle server that Dear Lever made.
So basically, in December 5th, 2020, Furious, which is one of our friends and member, posted on the GBA temp about like Tell of Destiny DC. Said, "Oh, I'm trying this, and I think I got somewhere with the code, but I need help for the next part." And then Peter, the person that created the first server, um, help him out a little bit, and they eventually created a Discord server when they got far enough into the process that we could get text out of the game. Um, and we kind of all joined when the server got online, and then the text was on the internet, and everybody was kind of making like the round on YouTube. Everybody joined that server, and we started frantically translating the text, even though everything was broken and it was very hectic. And eventually, in May 2021, we released a full English patch for Tale of Destiny DC. Even though it was a very rough first version, we managed to actually do all of the text inside of the game, and we met a lot of the people that we have here in that project. And that's when Live Bottle got created. So it got created on a sort of some core basis of Live Bottle that were free association, were open source, anybody can join. We're beginner friendly because all of us were beginner at when we started DC. Some of us didn't even know what a byte was. And we're not just limited to game. Basically, DC was a game. We did Rebirth as a game, but we also did novels, and we plan to do videos and CDs and anything that we might like. We're gonna do. And a lot of everything that we do is based on GitHub and Discord. So basically, GitHub is where we have all of our open source code so that people can peruse and look at it. And Discord is where we all organize because we think that the fact that we're able to communicate in real time really changed the whole landscape of translating. Like instead of like having to wait 2 weeks on a server, like on a GBA temp or something for somebody to answer, we can solve a problem in a matter of hours, basically, just by being able to all be in the Discord server together.
So a question I did have is, where did the name Life Bottle Productions come from exactly? Why is it not Apple Gel Productions?
All right, so basically, we were looking at different names. I think we have like Draconis Production or whatever. We had a lot of different DC names, so based on the DC game. Uh, but at one point, Light P, one of our friends, one of the Liveball member, came up with Liveball Production, uh, reviving the classic, and it just clicked. It just made so much more sense. It's one of the first items you get in the game. Everybody knows how it works. It's pretty straightforward. You revive an ally, and it clicks with what we were trying to achieve, right? Reviving all of these old classic of the Tales franchise that have been long forgotten.
Basically doing
Um,
what Tales fans have been wanting, but Namco wouldn't do.
exactly, and basically also the open source approach was to make sure we never have another kind of absolute zero moment where a lot of the history and a lot of the code base and a lot of the translation just vanish from the internet, right? We want to make sure that if one day we disappear, the code is still there and anybody can take the code and do something with it. It's very important for us.
So, obviously, Destiny Director's Cut was finished in 2021. When did you start the Rebirth fan translation?
Sometime 2021.
Yeah, Lauren jumped right on it. Basically, when we released our first version, we released in May. Lauren's still in Ethanol kind of like, and with Peter, right? He kind of left the
Was
server to create another
Peter?
server.
I think Peter made the D2 server in
Yeah,
2021,
in
and
in
then
June.
I think he had Elizer make a tool for Tales of Rebirth. And he was just like, "Hey Lauren, you want to do PS2 Tales of Rebirth?" I'm like, yeah."
Yeah, basically Peter kind of creates the project. He's like, here I'm gonna do this thing, and people are gonna be able to work on it, but then he's not gonna stay usually. He's like, I gave you like the basis of something, now make something with it, which is the same thing that happened on Destiny DC. So basically, Rebirth has been a project that's been kind of like in between other projects since 2021. Because in 2021 we did the first version of DC, then we started Tale of Innocence R in June as well in the D2 server. That's basically now Tale of ABCDE. We finished the first version of Tale of Innocence. We continue working on DC at the same time, made our version 2.0, had the battle subs added. Then we jumped into other project as well, Tale of Versus, Tale of Abyss, HD Pack, Tale of Hearts R Infinite Evolve, Tale of Navigate Dungeon X, and so on and so forth. Always multiple projects at the same time. But Tale of Rebirth has been on and off since 2021, and now it's concluding because it's been our main focus for the last year.
Kind of to add to that, like we jumped to Innocence because we had a lot of the translation done already by mine, who
Exactly, yeah.
joined the team. And it's like a lot of the projects are worked on because like what's available and what can be done like quickly. So if there's already a big translation being worked on and someone wants to join in and we kind of share our resources, that would take like priority because it could be done faster.
Exactly. Basically, we try to remove the friction of translation. That if somebody made like for Nanakagi Dungeon X, we have Kevasa script, which is the only script online that has a whole game. We went to him, we asked him, can we use your script in the game? Can we put it in the game? He says, yes, you can do whatever you want, put it in the game. And basically, that's a good chunk, at least, of a first draft that's done. And we don't have to redo that. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. A lot of people always want to retranslate from scratch. I can understand that. But at Live Bottle, we try to remove these kind of barriers to uh, maybe give something back to the fan as quick as possible in the meantime while we work on the quality version.
Now, speaking about that script, obviously one of the controversies we were talking about yesterday is the fact that the monsters in this game are called viruses. And initially, I was under the impression that that name was supposed to be viruses, as you know, they're sort of a cancer on the world. And obviously, Japan doesn't have a V sound; they use the B because it's closest to a V sound. Um, so could you explain to people why you kept the translation as virus rather than going to the proper English of virus?
So for that one, the both the strategy guide published by I think it's
There was the
the Final
Famitsu one and
Media,
also the Namco. Yeah, both of them, I think.
both of them use the term virus spelled with a B, and then we found the PlayStation Portable version of the game, the overlays for that version of the game all have the instruction names or the function names for the functions in them, and those use the spelling virus as well. And the thing was, going through the script, if you have this was happening during the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and it was very hard to take seriously when you read a script and it says virus, 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 and you know that virus is a word in English. Because the thing with how it is in Japanese is the Japanese word for virus is virus, not virus. So for a Japanese player of the game, obviously it sounds like the English word for virus, but it's not their Japanese word for virus, virus. So it's not as distracting. But when you're going through the game and you're just like, oh my gosh, I hate this word virus, it's just like, ack.
The Japanese katakana for virus is not the one that's used for virus. It's like very close. It's an alternate spelling, but it's really not the main spelling. And you're probably, if you Google it, you're gonna find like some Godzilla monster that has like this spelling or something like that.
What?
So like the Japanese person, if you put yourself in their shoes, they're not reading virus as they would read like coronavirus. They're reading a spelling of virus that's slightly different. And our approach for a while was to translate it with a Nordic name, virus or something like that. But then when we saw the code, the function name, when we saw the books, we thought Lauren was keen on keeping it virus, and I think it just makes the game a little bit more unique.
I can understand. So I think you guys were also explaining that you've added some of the PSP content into this game as well. So what exactly? How does the PSP version of this game differ from the PS2 version?
So the PlayStation Portable version of the game, in 4 of the early game shops, you're able to buy Apple Gels. So we added Apple Gels to those shops in particular and changed the buy and sell price, because originally in Tales of Rebirth PS2, the price for Apple Gels is the same for Peach Gels. So we made it congruent with the PSP release. We also added the 2 cutscenes that were cut from the PS2 release, which are still in the PS2's code, but just unfinished. So we used the PSP file for one of those, and then the other one was pretty much done. So we just kept that file with some modifications, because you had to modify the story flags in order to get it to work for the PS2 version. And then PSP version also has a little dojo arena thing, but that involves more opcodes, which we have yet to port back. And so the arena will not be in the initial release of the patch. There's also a image gallery added in the PSP version, but we don't really plan on adding that either.
We'll see what they
The
turn out for this
What are
kind
the
of things.
cons?
And then other things added in the PSP release,
the movement speed is different, right?
alternate cut-ins in the PS2 release of Tales of Rebirth. The front cut-in is always the melee character, and the back cut-in is always the mage character. But in the PSP version, they kind of switch it over a bit. PSP release also added cut-ins for Saleh and Collegia Castle battle, Militza in her first battle, and Toma in the Malkrata battle.
Did they actually add in more high Augis in the PSP version?
No, they just in the PSP version when Toma, Militza, Saleh, I think Sharon and Yvonne too, when they do their special unique attack for the first time, the cut-in will display, but only that one time.
Okay.
Maybe one day it's gonna get back in. But one thing that the PS2 version has is higher quality and also no cropping. So the PSP version, to get the 16:9 aspect ratio, they would cut the top and the bottom of the image. They wouldn't like show you
Yeah.
more. They would actually cut. And the quality of these assets, the quality of these textures that we're putting inside of the PSP were like basically half the resolution. If you do some side by side, it's crazy the quality difference that the PS2 has versus the
Yeah.
PSP. So
There's
basically, we're
PS2
trying
version.
to make the best of both worlds, right? We're gonna have the multiplayer. We're gonna take everything that we can port on initial release is gonna be in. Anything that we can port later, we're gonna port later. And even on top of that, we're gonna have quality of lives that weren't in the original to begin with. Uh, these are a plan; they're not necessarily all
Have
implemented.
you got so what
But
quality of life improvements have you already implemented? Sorry if I missed that.
what did we put?
The Apple gels in
Subtitles.
shops.
Yeah, the Apple.
Oh, with subtitles, they weren't there to begin with. That's like kind
Yeah,
of a
we had
big
to
one.
code subtitles. Tales of Destiny Director's Cut, they had subtitles for the FMVs. Rebirth did not. So our
The
programmer
centering.
Ethanol had to code subtitles. I think we based the code off of the end credits actually.
I
And
think so,
then,
yeah.
the
We
skit we
added
centered the skits because originally the skits were they were centered based on the initial line, like the entire length of the both lines stacked together.
Yeah,
And so
because
we now in the PS2 English patch, they are centered separate from one another.
like normal subs you would see anywhere else, basically. It's just something that they don't really put in these kind of old games. For them, when you center something, it's gonna be left aligned but centered in the middle of the screen, which is kind of ugly. One of the other thing that was one of the big thing we wanted to do back then, and finally managed to do it, um, was add custom icons for the elements. Because in Japanese they use the single kanji character for each element. It's neat, it's square, it fits everywhere. But if you have fire, water is 5 letter, fire is 4 letter, then you have darkness, but is it darkness or dark or shade or whatever? There's like so many different like size of things that this little area they reserved for the elements doesn't fit anymore. So Lauren designed 6 new icons that weren't never in the game before, but they're all based on like actual real icons that you can find in games. So like backgrounds that you see in games and dungeons from each element have been recreated into these neat little icons that are now inside of the game. So that's kind of really nice.
yeah, like I think it's the same thing in a lot of Tales games. Like often they'll just use like a little fire symbol in the English version when they'll use the kanji for fire in the Japanese version. So no,
They
that's
learned that the hard way because they weren't doing that before. I think they were told by other people, especially localization people, use icons. Icons are universal. They fit in any languages.
I can tell you one
Uh,
game that didn't. Xenosaga Episode 1 had like FRIC and other sorts of like letters, and like that was hard. And I don't even think it was color coded, so like it was all written in just the same font color as the rest of the text. That game, I made that game.
because some kanji are like basically ideogram, right? Like the fire looks like a fire in Japanese. So for them, it's already kind of an icon, right? But it doesn't translate into English very well than any other language, actually. That's one of the main reason. Once you start moving into the localization aspect of uh, creating your project with localization in mind, probably what they were probably instructed by 8.4 when they made a partnership with them, that a few things needed to be icons or it just wouldn't work in the future. And a lot of the games that came out after Abyss, which was the first project that 8.4 did, started to have icons. So they were kind of probably like supervised on that front.
I'm going to quickly ask, how was coding similar between this game and Tales of Destiny Director's Cut, and did that sort of help make the fan translation go across a bit more smoother than when you did Destiny for the first time?
So
Mm,
for
go
Tales
ahead,
of
Lauren. I think you
Destiny
know a lot more.
Director's Cut, they have the same system programmer. So it's a very similar setup. You know, you have the dat.bin, which contains all the files of the game. You have your mov.bin, which contains all the movie files. You have your executable, which is the
SLPS.
SLPS. Yeah, that's just the name for the game internally, or like the PlayStation, number identification for the game. But so a lot of things are similar, but a lot of things are also different. For example, the bytecode that the scenario files are written in. Tales of Destiny, Director's Cut, I guess Destiny PS2 is just TOD1 RSCE, and then Rebirth is a THEIR SCE. And the code for those is very different. A problem we had in Destiny DC was that the offsets for the text could be variable size, and that was very problematic when your English text gets very long. But for Tales of Rebirth and also Tales of Destiny 2 as well, the offsets for those are always fixed 2 bytes in length, I believe. Yeah, fixed 2 bytes in length.
Basically, on
But
Tale of
for
Destiny DC, one of the main problems that we had was that some of the text had to be shortened because of that major difference between what they had in Rebirth and D2 and what they had in DC. There was some kind of like limit on some places in the code where we had to make a little bit of sacrifice. Where in
yeah,
Tale of Rebirth,
we call
the
it the
4096,
4096
yeah,
curse.
and the programmer knew about it because like in the files that you look at it when you translate you see in Japanese writing this is the 4096 limit and you're like if you knew it was there why did um but DC was a lot more complex in terms of opcode from what Itana was telling us, but you can see an evolution, so it's easier usually to look back than to look forward because at one point it really changes. um, but a lot of the games, usually by a company, a lot of the games that are developed by the same company, they share really a similar DNA. So when it came to like Tale of Innocence R and Tale of Hearts R, the code base is identical. And sometimes when we look into like modifying some kind of files, you can even look at other IP of the same programming company, and they're going to be the same kind of formula and the same kind of code base. So you'll be able to use these kind of code if somebody else online made a tool for another game that they did to be able to help you in your project. That's the beauty of open source, basically.
I was thinking, with games that have like similar programming, I remember with the Vita games that there's like a big bug in Innocence R, and that we found out how to fix it because of the
Tale of
Hearts are
Infinite,
Infinite
yeah,
Evolved. Yeah, I thought
yeah,
that
yeah,
was really
yeah.
interesting.
To
What
be
was the
honest,
bug?
that's kind of the neat thing, and that's the reason why we managed to do Infinite Evolve, like Tell of Hearts are Infinite Evolve, was because all of the code base was done for Innocent, so it was really easy to modify for this game. The bug
There's
The
like
bug
bunny
was that
icons.
the icons for the button they have no spacing information. So basically, like if you have letters and then the icon appears, um, it's not gonna properly be at the right place. It's gonna be like more on the left because for them that icon doesn't take any pixel. It doesn't take any space. Like it's zero, which I mean doesn't make any sense. But it makes sense in a game that's monospace, so every letter has the same amount of space. It's coding wise it's easy to do, but once you make all of the letter more compact like we do in our language, right, the I is take less space than let's say a W, you get some weird stuff happening, especially when the programmer didn't think about it. And the funny part about it is 100% the people that made arts are the actual English official translation had to solve that issue because it was still in there.
It was also some characters in the combat missions were like messed up, where they got changed to like zeros and ones.
Yeah, no, okay, so this one, that's kind of a funny one. So usually when you create a variable in a programming in one of your code, you're not going to name your variable a letter that's then used in English. That doesn't make sense. They did that. So the letter A was used as like A equal 1 or something like that. So every time you would have the A in a text string, so in a text that appears in that little box, it would get converted to something else, a number that they had in the memory. So we had to change that character, change that variable name to a character that would never be used in English, so that we wouldn't have that issue anymore. But that's a multitude of different kind of like bad programming practices that usually go under the radar when the game is not translated because it's QA before they send it. But once you start touching these kind of things, you uncover all of these kind of little quirks, as we could call them.
So by the way, we were talking a bit earlier about what our favourite characters were, and I think most of you guys said Tytree was your favourite. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tree is
Yeah.
my second favorite, and Eugene's my first.
I really like Claire.
I think the whole cast is pretty strong.
That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
I think the villains are more interesting. I like playing Tree because he's like Lloyd without sword, in my opinion, a little bit. But when it comes to like Toma, it's kind of funny looking. He's like the Beauty and the Beast, and you can see in the concept art that they really ripped off the Beauty and the Beast. It looks like Disney-esque. And Militza is kind of a pretty interesting character.
Yeah, it's funny. I just noticed Annie mentioned Militza just after you're about to leave town in Minau, and I thought, oh, I didn't realize she gets mentioned so early in the game.
Yeah,
She's
she gets mentioned early, and then you
she's
just
hard. The boss fight was
Oh
kind of
yeah, I
hard.
remember the
Yeah.
boss fight. Well, actually, funny story about that. I was playing Rebirth so I had this video games club where like every Friday you could just bring games and just play and chill with each other. And I brought the Tales games in because they had multiplayer. And a friend was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's Tales of Rebirth. You want to play?" And then it just happened we're just up to the Militza boss fight. So their first ever fight in the game was the Militza boss fight. And I'm like, I think
That's
I
rough.
just turned someone off for the Tales series forever, and I'm so sorry.
I
Some
think it's
people
one
like
of
a
the.
challenge.
It was really challenging. I think it's probably the hardest boss fight in the early game. All of the other ones are kind of pushovers, but this one is it's a challenge. I think it was the one where I had like no life ball left, no peach gel left. It was like I'm my last character and I killed her. And it's after that fight I was like, why isn't there any apple gels? If I had 15 apple gel, it would still be like pretty all right for that fight. And I was like, we gotta put them back in. Gotta put the apple gels.
By the way, one thing I did notice in this game is in battle, the weapons are 2D, but if I remember correct, in Tales of Destiny Director's Cut, the weapons are actually 3D. Like the weapons the characters are holding are 3D, even though the character models are 2D, which I always thought was kind of weird in that game.
I think it's the same.
Is that true, Lauren? Lauren is the graphic person. She knows all about that.
what's Ishimayu?
She says that he says that the weapon in DC are 3Ds, the
They
sprites.
are not 3D. They are a file called a WEAC. WEAC is the magic number, and they are very high, like they're very large image graphics that the game will insert into the animations. The sprite animations are called AN3 files. Probably stands for like the magic number is ANP3, so that's probably like an animation pack file. But the game, depending on which weapon you have equipped, will take those WEAC tiles, which are 2D images, and then insert them into specified areas within the AN3 file.
Okay. I was wondering whether or
But
not
That's
they're
you
why
just
they look different because they're scaled different. Basically, they're
yeah
not the
they're
same size.
yeah
Okay.
they're scaled, and the reason why they're so large is so that the game can do rotation on them
It's not. Is
and
this a
have it
bit like
still look
Donkey Kong
decent.
in the Donkey Kong Country games, where it's like they had a 3D model that they took like a bunch of
No, that's
emojis.
kind of a little bit different. I know what you're saying.
I think they just
It's
shaded
a
the
little bit
models.
different. Donkey
They just
Kong
shaded the
basically
models
they
in
had
bits.
like 3D models. No, Donkey Kong they had 3D models, and then they took pictures of the different faces and they created sprite from that.
I do notice that
Um,
like the blades and stuff in Rebirth have like a little animation where they kind of glimmer on like at like set intervals. So
Oh,
that's a thing as well. But
by the way, we're in the battle book right now. Who was the one that was mentioning yesterday about how you can open up the battle book and actually see what terminology?
that was
Uh,
me.
yeah, I thought that was just a very cool thing to show off because, like, obviously, for people that have only played played with like myself with just the PDF guide, obviously, you don't realize just how detailed the battle book is because obviously this is all those pretty much every Team Destiny game is got a very unique in-depth battle system.
This one
that's kind of
especially,
funny
yeah.
actually because DC didn't have a battle book. They only had the after battle tutorial where they had a little screen of text and then it would disappear forever, never to be seen
Oh, I
again.
think Graces had a bit
Uh,
of
I
that as
think there's a
well.
little. I think there's someone you can review the information, but I think it's like in your items. If I remember, I may be misremembering though.
no, there's no way to. There's no way to
Damn.
see it. But basically, yes, in the Tale of Rebirth, there's this very complex, very in-depth, and very long to translate. Kayan knows about that battle book. And what's really interesting about this one is it has a regex, basically a text search, where every entry has either a title or a few titles that the game doesn't show you. So basically, HP is gonna be like health point in between brackets, and then it's gonna have HP hidden, or it's gonna have health hidden in the code. And every time it finds health or HP somewhere else in the other entries, it's gonna link back to this entry. For better or for worse, we still have to modify a few things in there to make sure we get the good match. But it matches all of the other entry names so that you can reference all of the other information while you're in one entry. It's a very unique system. I don't think they ever did that again. Rebirth, what's very interesting about Rebirth is a lot of things in Rebirth are super experimental. They did things they'd never done before and they never done after, actually, so it was an experiment. Like to give you an idea, the shops. When you go talk to a shop clerk, they would have the shop name inside of where the clerk name would be. It would be like shop Echo of the Mountain or whatever, super long name. They never did that afterward. They probably realized it was not a good idea, but it was in there. There's also a lot of scaling. So
Yeah,
when you talk to them, it's just gonna be innkeeper, it's just gonna be shopkeeper because we don't want shopkeeper, Echo of the Mountain, and it takes the whole screen just for the name, and then you
yeah.
have the little welcome underneath. We shortened that out because basically we made it a little bit like the other games.
I was gonna say it's also I think Rebirth's one of the only other games that has like not only just a side special but like a front and a back special as well.
Yeah, I think Zestiria is the only one I know where hitting back with an art also does an art. That's the only two games I can think of. But Rebirth's the only one, I mean, Zestiria is the only one I know that has all five inputs: neutral, up, down, left, right, and back. Obviously, Rebirth doesn't have a neutral, although it kind of does. It just automatically selects one.
And then you got like
Which
the
is
self
Yeah,
healing
it
as well, which is
automatically selects them. I think from like top, front, back, down. I think is the order it selects them,
And to be
depending on
honest,
how
that's the
full
best
the
feature of the game, in my opinion, because if you use an art that's full RG, because that's the order it's gonna go. It's gonna go in the clockwise order, and the one that are full RG, when you have FG, I mean, it's gonna heal you. People need to use that a lot.
I kind of
So
wish.
basically, just spam the O button, no direction. Just spam the art button with no direction, and it's gonna do all the one that heals you, and you're gonna be full of health.
I
It's
kind of
easy
wish you
like
could have
that.
the one where like, when was the first Tales game to add in the whole pressing R1 to access four more arts?
I think you're thinking about L1. R1 usually
L1,
selects
yeah,
target.
That was
yeah.
Vesperia. That was the first one that got that,
Because it would have
I
been so
think.
cool in this game if you could like press L1 and get like the other side of the force cube. Like you could have like all all 8 points of the cube in action at once. That I thought that would have been.
Oh, that could have been pretty neat. Basically, it could have been mapped on the joysticks like they did in Abyss, right? So the joystick, the right joystick would have four more R's. It would still need to use the same RG because or else it wouldn't like the same force gauge or it wouldn't work.
Yeah,
Because
but you
basically,
technically have 8 arts, which might be a little bit broken, but hey, that's fun. This isn't.
Do you think someone could try modding that in? Because I mean, we got it in
I mean, it's
DC
possible.
and
we
Abyss.
did talk about it. That's like that goes a lot beyond the scope of what we want to do, but it's kind of thing that
Right.
once it's in English, it's possible that people can modify these kind of things. I think
Uh,
one of the more like
Because like, how would you
one
actually
of
see your
the
arts on the other side? You had to like, you had to some
well,
button down the bottom here that like flip to the other side of the cube and have 4 more arts.
we got Euphoric. Maybe we could ask him because I know he did the extra arts cheat for Abyss. Probably do something
You
similar
did
to
it
that.
for Destiny too, didn't you? Or Destiny, like the
I
first
think
Destiny 2.
I don't think he did something for Destiny. I think he like ported over somebody else's. I don't
Oh,
remember
okay.
exactly,
We'll
but he did
see.
a thing for
We'll
for
see.
Abyss. We can ask him.
I mean, we do have an extensive cheat tables and cheat not just cheat, but like basically things that alter the games. Whether it's like you want to activate something from the grade menu that you didn't activate, you could do that. One of the things that we can actually do is deactivate the encounter because when you're testing, it's a very useful feature. Um, but that's also something that's going to be available for release for the people that know how to use them. If they want to mess around with the game, it's going to be up to them. Because one of the few things we want to bring back in the game post release, so post our initial release, is I mean, the God difficulty would be nice to implement. We also want to be able, because you can technically save anywhere, right? You have the suspend feature, with the suspend feature, you basically can stop the game. It's gonna stop you right there. It's gonna boot you to the title screen, and then you can reload that save where you're anywhere. We want to be able to reload that save even though you used it once. Usually it's deleted once it's used, but we want to be able to keep it. That was something they had on the PSP version as well. And one of the few quality of life we want to put in there that are not in the original game, uh, save point quality of life. So basically, when you go on a save point, you have to go in the menu to be able to save, which is I think it's kind of odd. When any other Tales game that came after that, you just have a button that says save, and you press on the circle button or whatever, and it can save. That would be something we'd bring back. We want to center some of the notice. So when you walk around throughout the environmental text, these ones are all left centered because that's left aligned because that's how the game does it. Would be nice to have some centering on that. Um, Among other things, I think anything we can kind of think of that are not like game breaking, they're just kind of nice quality of life stuff.
What's the plans after you guys have finished Tales of Rebirth? So what's like what's sort of the next game you think's going to be up on the what's the next what's the next game
Next
The
planned?
big
next
project?
project,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so I guess I'll get this one. We got Fantasia X and Neurocurie Dungeon X. That's what's up next.
Like the
We've
dual
also
pack
got
or the individual games?
we're gonna have
gonna
to do them
start with
individually
NES.
for now, and because it's gonna be a bit of a pain having like a merged patch, so we probably have to have two separate patches for each game, essentially like a patch for each. We're also gonna be working on Hearts DS as well. The lead translator for Innocence R is going to be handling that. In addition to that, there's also the Eternia retranslation, which Yamanabe is working on. I'm not sure when that will be ready, but yeah, since Peggy mentioned earlier, we have a script for like Narakiri Dungeon X and Fantasia X that we can use. So hopefully it shouldn't take as long as Rebirth, but I think that's what's next on the agenda. Did I miss anything?
So much to look forward to.
We have televerses that we might get a little bit more one day. I mean, televerses, the idea is there's 9 stories, there's 9 scenario, and if somebody would want to work on the one scenario that's more bite size, it's 1,000 sentence. It's still 1,000. I mean, they're free to do so. It's available online. It's a Google sheet, and they can translate if they want to. It's gonna get back into the game. So that would be something that people could work on, but it's not a main focus compared to what Dragon has said.
I think one thing we should mention is that like since we are open source, like there are a lot of people that are like non-English speakers that use a lot of the tools we have, so we might see like projects spring up from them, like mods or their own translations too. So
Yeah, I know there's the Brazilian Tales of the Abyss one that's being worked on for
there's like a
Portuguese.
There's like a Russian one too that's gonna work on Rebirth next year. I think it was.
Yeah, that's a Evil Finalist group.
It's Temple of
Yeah.
Tales. Yeah, they're pretty far along actually. They've been helping us. Basically, to give you an idea, Temple of Tales was the people that put the DC tools online for people to use, and the reason why we exist, right? It was these tools that launched the first project, and we've been in contact with them, helping them, basically helping, giving back to them some of the tools that we have developed for other games. So it's a partnership that's been going on since the early days,
I
and
think
they're
last
working on their Tale of Rebirth patch.
let's see, I think the last time I talked to my like the other day, I shared the Telezillia 2 cheat file for RPCS3 that lets you like unlock Luger's voice in regular new game. So I don't know if that's shipped with the patch or what, but he seemed pretty excited about that.
So where can people find you and such?
We're
Yes,
almost everywhere.
Mostly just on the Discord server.
Gator, you can go ahead and plug all of our stuff.
We have a website, lifebottleproductions.org. We have a Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram, and I'm pretty sure they're all just Life Bottle Productions or Life Bottle Prod.
And a
It's
YouTube channel.
it's
Convenience pod.
livebottle.org, livebottle.org.
Okay, lifebottle.org. And then, yeah, we have the YouTube too, which is.
Live Bottle Production.
I will also say the game is going to be very much into an open beta state when it launches. So if you find any sort of errors in the script or any bugs for the audience, please report them. We'll have a channel open where you guys can do that, and we'll get to fixing it ASAP if any are found.
Yeah, just like Destiny DC was handling the same process. So something for bugs and something for proofreading. And if something needs retranslation, then the channel for that as well.
It should be stated this is in a much better state than like the last translations upon like the initial release, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well,
It's
thank
been
you.
incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for this work. As I think I might have mentioned in some other videos, Rebirth has been my most wanted English translation out of all the Tales games. So the fact that you guys have finally done it, like I'm very, very happy, and I'm so glad that other people can play this, and perhaps like that one friend I randomly got into the series on Rebirth, I can get some other random people into the series on this incredible game. So once again, thank you very much for agreeing to join me, with especially with the time zone difference between America and Australia. Um, and I hope you guys all have a lovely time with the release.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
Thank
nice
you for
day.
having us.
Yes, thank you.